Welcome to the Chaos and Light podcast. I am your host, Angela Levesque, and on today's episode, we are blending spirituality and technology with Peter Schenk. If you haven't checked out the chaosandlight.com website recently, I suggest that you do. We have fantastic tools and resources for you to support your conscious evolution. Guided meditations, articles, all sorts of free stuff on there to help you on your path of awakening. So please go to chaosandlight.com and check that out. Do you believe in synchronicity and synergy? That when people share, connect, and collaborate from an authentic space, amazing things can and do happen? Then check out the Chaos and Light community, an online space for spiritual seekers that supports personal growth and gives you a frequent touch point to stay connected to your spiritual core. Join a group, attend a gathering, be inspired by our Muse feed, all in a politics-free, ad-free environment. So dive deep into your spirituality at chaosandlight.com. Connect, inspire, expand. Well, I'm here today with Peter Schenk. Before creating Modern Day Mystic, Peter developed software to bolster the fortunes of one of the largest financial institutions on the planet. But after a turning point in his spiritual awakening, he realized he was intended to serve a greater purpose. Since that time, Peter's gaze has been fastened to improving the fortune of humankind, helping to prepare humanity for the new age. In addition to developing and perfecting powerful quantum energy-based software platforms, Peter provides continued outreach through weekly podcasts, lectures to groups around the world, workshops, and one-on-one sessions. For nearly 20 years, he has been on a mission to marry the physical and the metaphysical through the mystical power of numbers. Well, Peter, welcome to the Chaos and Light podcast.
Angela, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Typically out of the gate, I like to do a water blessing with everyone. And it's pretty simple. You'll just need a glass of water or a bottle of water. Water is the most programmable material on the planet. And by acknowledging its consciousness, you can do absolutely anything with it. So I'd like you to just raise your hand over that glass of water about 3 inches and spread your fingers. In a second, you'll start to feel the energy run down through your hand into the water. That could be a straight up lightning bolt. It can be heat, a tingly sensation. I'd like you to direct your attention to the water and repeat these 8 magical words out loud. I honor the space in which you exist. And in a second, you'll feel the energy increase through your hand into the water, at which point you can go ahead and drink as much as you like. This is just a blessing, general goodwill that sets the tone and the speed of the show. You'll notice that the water is silky, oily, and then you'll just want to pay attention to where it's moving in your body energetically.
Wow, I like that. It's funny, the last 3 episodes that I've had on here, talking about all different sorts of topics, this idea of water and the Japanese scientist that I know you reference on your website. I'm sorry.
Mr. Omoto.
Yes. That's funny. It has shown up 3 times in a row now on my last 2 podcasts.
He was very much ahead of his time, and all of my earlier work was based on his work. I just took it to another level.
Yeah, so let's start. Tell us, we'll go back a little bit. I read your bio, but let's go back and share with my listeners about your background. How did you get into doing the work that you're doing today?
Sure. So I graduated from engineering school in Boston with a computer engineering degree and a couple of associates. I went to work on Wall Street. I worked for 20 years with one of the world's largest investment banks, working with technology. About 20 years ago, I had a wake-up experience. It wasn't planned. Nothing tragic happened. It just happened. And the moment before that wake-up experience, I was very self-absorbed. I had no love of self. If you ask me what humility or discernment was, I didn't have a clue. I didn't care about anything. I was very successful at an early age. The more wealth I accumulated, the more empty I became on the inside. After that moment, my reality completely shifted. And I was being endowed with a toolbox of information, gifts to help people. For the first time in my life, I wanted to help people. It was it was a very bizarre feeling, but it was so genuine that it brought me to my knees. So for about 6 weeks after that experience, I thought I had literally gone insane. I was bestowed with the gift of sight, allows me to see energy in everything in real time, makes me very effective at helping people remove blockages in their life. So the only thing that kept me going in the early years was I was better at being whatever I was becoming than whence I came. And I embraced it wholeheartedly. So after about a year, I started gravitating towards the work of Dr. Emoto, and I saw some amazing videos. And I had this idea. Well, why can't someone write a computer program that will allow you to impress the light frequencies of an intention into a glass of water anywhere in existence? So, what did I do? Anyone can write a pretty computer program. People have been programming water forever, you know. But I wanted to utilize the power of technology, the microprocessor that can focus an intention a million times a second. And the only thing that was required of the user was where you put your attention, you set the intention. So we released a program called First Water. It was free to the world, had 10 selectable intents. And the idea was to pick the one that you wanted, put your attention on the water. 81 seconds later, the water was completely changed. It went viral. This is in 2005. And I shut it down because I got scared. I had stumbled into a world that I wasn't prepared for. And that's when the real work set out. So on July 7th, 2000, and I'm sorry, July 4th, 2007, Aquaware was born. At that time, it was a downloadable program that had over 180 selectable intents. You pick the intention, you put your attention on the water, and at that time it's probably 60 seconds. But as the software evolved over the last 15 years, I mean, today, Aquaware now sports over 1,000 pre-canned attentions, many advanced structures. But what I learned from that spawned several other programs utilizing the core technology, and it's been very successful. So the way the universe works, right? The way you gather brilliance is by serving the light, okay, source. And if you have the capacity to spread more love and light in the world, you're given access to more brilliant ideas to bring into fruition. So in 2015, I left the bank, and that's when things really started to explode. So up until that point, I was doing YouTube videos, I was doing workshops, I was doing sessions with people, basically directing source energy through their body and removing negativity. And I was doing shows and all kinds of things back then. But in 2015 is when physical products really started to take hold. And again, because I had served for so many years creating software generation after generation, today all the software is in its sixth generation. It's amazing. Um, I was given access to create a physical device. So I didn't know how to manufacture anything. I was like, what do I do? So I did what everybody else does. I got on Google. I said, how do you manufacture a process? So 3 days later, after putting my name out there, the lawyers started calling me. You need a patent here, you need one there. I was like, whatever. So I latched on to a manufacturing company in Milwaukee, and I explained to them my idea. I wanted to revolutionize an industry. I think big with whatever I do. As far as it goes, that's great, but I always think large. And I needed something. So if you look at driving, for instance, driving a car, when we're 16, you get your license in the States, it's freedom. It's like, wow. As you get older, it's like road rage. Oh, I got to buy gas insurance, whatever. So there's a lot of negative energy when you get into your car. So I wanted to create something that would allow 0 point energy at the speed of thought. Okay. So uh, the way the game is played is you have to go through a bunch of learning lessons and improve yourself, right? So way back in 2008, I didn't even know what 0 point technology was. I s- I was given I was being impulsed to take gold, okay, and dissolve it in Aqua, which is a highly nasty acid compound. It's 3 parts hydrochloric acid, 1 part nitric. And the idea was to put the gold in there, dissolve it, use formic acid to neutralize the hydrochloric acid. And when that happens, this chemical exchange, violent chemical exchange happens. And I know based on uh, my education that whenever there's energy release, something is happening. So I was given the plans for sacred geometry. So the idea was when this is happening, you put this on sacred geometry and you push that energy through something and it formed the 0 point, then getting back, increasing your amount of gold through the competition. Well, the experiments were never successful, but what the knowledge that was gained back then, years, over a decade later, would become the principles for a whole revolution of technology, which I've developed. So, what we learned was that there is an infinite amount of universes that rage around us all the time. And the only thing that's constant in those universes, the density of matter, the weight of matter has to remain constant, universal rule. So pushing the energy through and receiving the gold back was a perfect match. The experiments were never successful, but the knowledge learned years later was. So fast forward to 2015, I had this idea to create which became the harmonic field amplifier, a new way to travel. It was a beautifully crafted copper and silver device with a clockwork spiral on top and a -1 on the bottom. We had the golden ratio on top, the seven sisters of the Palladium star system on the bottom. And what you would do is just activate it by simply holding it in your left hand. I honor the space in which you exist. Now, what did people experience from that? Road rage went away. Okay. You get up on the highway, there's no one in front of you, there's no one in back of you. You always get a parking space out front, crazy areas. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And this is all on the moderndaymystic.com website, all of these testimonials. So, because I had successfully created a device, I was then given the plans for something bigger. So, I created one for the home and office, which removes all the negativity because that was a success. We pushed forward creating the harmonic field amplifier mini, which was a beautifully crafted pendant that you wear around your neck, crafted from copper and silver. Copper would attract the negativity, silver creates and stabilizes the field. And the cool thing about it was because it's pure copper and silver, there's no other metals in it. So people would wear this pendant in their house for weeks on end. And then they go out into public and it literally turns black within an hour. And that is the power of showing you how it's protecting you. Then they would go home, they would clean it, they go back out in public, it turns black in an hour again. So it goes on and on. That the HFA line then spawned a whole other line of technology called the IMs. Okay. We came out with the IM pyramids, the IM bracelets. The IM pyramids was the first to come out. So what is the IM? When you say the words IM, you're evoking all of creation to take notice of you. Then you follow it up with I am love, I am unconditional love of self, I am source, I am energy. But what a lot of people don't really know is that it's actually a pyramid. And underneath that is the road, right? That becomes the mantra. So on the website, under the I am section, you'll find 13 beautifully crafted mantras. And I'll just read one quickly to you so you kind of understand the power, and I'll kind of bring it all full circle here. Okay, so we'll do I am purpose. Okay, so remember, I am at the top, purpose in the middle, and then the mantra at the bottom. I am purpose with reason and value within the universe. My function in the universe is mine alone. The answers within me are ready to guide me on an amazing journey that I am on. My passion is not to pursue my purpose, but to live my purpose in every moment. I am not chasing the big things, but instead feel the joy in every moment. I embrace my solid identity right here and now. I am in a state of peacefulness. I am purpose. Do you feel the energy coming from that?
Yes.
Now, to bring it all together, again, as you go through these experiences, right, you truly have to unlearn everything you have ever learned for the real learning to begin. And only in an experience do you learn the depths, the breadth, and the scope of these types of creations, right? So everything in existence has what we call a true name. And a true name can come in the form of a symbol, a spoken word, a tone, a musical lyric. I mean, just about anything, even colors. So each one of the I ams on the website has the true name in the form of a symbol, which is on the pyramids, which is on the bracelets, right? So would you want to drive your Ferrari on a dirt road, or you want to drive it on the German Autobahn? So you, you get it. So you have to completely get down into it.
Well, I want to unpack some of the things that you said. You mentioned 0 point energy, and I think that most of my listeners will have an idea of what that is. But if you could give us a little primer on what you're talking about when you say that.
Sure. So 0 point energy is source energy. It's universal energy. It's chi. It's prana. It's the life force that binds us all. Okay. So a pretty buzzword is the quantum this and quantum that. What does that mean? Science tells us, through quark theory, string theory, quantum mechanics, how this all works. And I've read those books and they don't make any sense. What does make sense is that you have a fundamental understanding, okay, that everything is made up of energy and that energy is all interconnected. That interconnected plane is what science coins the quantum realm. It's the only place in existence that has pure consciousness, and you can be anywhere or you can be nowhere in complete simultaneity all the time.
So I have a interesting in I think the New Age circles. Some people talk about the use of technology as sort of like a terrible thing of humanity. I actually interviewed some person on the show that said that we're using technology as a proxy for our latent human potentials, meaning that we have instead of us doing the inner work or awakening the ancient force within us, is what his language would be. He said that we've kind of now just put all of our potentialities into technology instead of developing the self. And then there's some people who kind of think like technology and spirituality should be totally separate, and that eventually we're going to have to be far less technically integrated, which is not necessarily something I agree with. So what would you say to people who have that view that maybe those two things shouldn't be together?
It's inevitable. It's happening now. You know, Technology can be a necessity. It can also be an evil at the same time, depending on how you look at it. Everything I create represents past, present, and future. Okay. I use ancient knowledge in present day with state of the art metallurgy and fabrication processes, which weren't available 10 years ago, in a futuristic design. Okay. And having the ability to create the stuff that science fiction books are written about and bring them to the world is a marriage of spirituality and cutting edge technology, whether it's digital software that allows you to program water anywhere in existence to something that's beautifully crafted out of pure copper and silver.
Do you think there's any applications of technology in our that are detrimental to humanity and our kind of hopefully global awakening?
I think that there's a lot of people that are waking up across the planet. So this kind of goes back to what the gentleman you had the conversation with, where he was um, bent against technology, and then so I use myself as an example in this equation. Right here, I am one day. I'm living a happy life. That's what I thought it was a happy life back then, and I have an awakening experience, right? And all of a sudden, 20 years later, I'm pushing the envelope with blinders on because I don't read anything that's out there and I don't really care what anybody else is doing. I am hyper focused on what I'm bringing to bear in the world, in the niche that I play in. And I believe that there's advanced teams of people that are being woken up for a specific purpose. Now, I say this wholeheartedly because I interviewed over 100 amazing people, and about 70% of them had these crazy wake up experiences that had engineering and technical backgrounds. And all of a sudden, they walked out of their high paying jobs and they are creating some of the most beautiful things you can imagine utilizing technology.
Yeah, I would say that I would agree with you that it's inevitable. I would say that there's some things we're creating, like we had talked about before recording. I think social media is kind of a scourge on humanity. I think the way that that has been designed and used to, commodify our attention and manipulate and kind of create these little bubbles where all of consensus-based reality breaks down. I think that there's some things that are terrible about that. So I wouldn't say blanket statement, all technology is good. I would say, though, that there is a lot of areas where it's beneficial, and it's certainly not going away. We're not going to go back to living in, dirt house, like straw houses and not be connected. So I think that used in the right way, that it can be incredibly powerful. When you were, you had this experience, and then you spent many years still working in the financial industry. What were your friends, what were your colleagues saying to you as you were having this
I was
awakening?
completely off the radar. I was computer nerd by day. I was Neo and Indiana Jones at night. And I did that for a decade or more. And then no one really had a clue about what I was doing. And then when I left, they all kind of go to LinkedIn and some other things to see what you're doing. They were just like, I had no idea. And some of them were very receptive to it. And others, they want nothing to do with you. And that's fine. I mean, I have a vision. I'm hyper focused on that. And I have no idea where it's going. But I tell you this, I go to bed happy and I wake up happy every day because I know that products and services that I'm providing to the world are changing people's lives for the better.
Yes.
And, like, so the first time I helped somebody, probably through a session once upon a time, and they came back and, they were in tears and they were so joyful. And something clicks deep down in your primordial brain, right? And you have to have more of that. It's not a drug, but it's an overwhelming feeling, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life, maybe besides the birth of my kids. But you have to get more of it at any cost. And that is part of the formula that the universe uses to propel you and drive you forward. And, so people ask me, well, how did you get started this? What do you do? And I said, it's simple. It starts with an act of kindness. You smile at somebody, you get involved in something, you let the poor schmuck out in traffic, and what you're doing is you're creating positive karma that will come back to you 1,000-fold. So start off small. The universe takes notice, and then they deliver a bit of information. And what you do with that information determines if you move to a higher octave where there's more brilliance and there's more ideas and there's more pathways through this, this net of everything that's trying to stop you from shining in whatever you're endeavoring to do.
That kind of leads to one of the questions. So this is something that I ask a lot of a lot of my guests who are spiritual teachers and healers and stuff. What is the role of the modern day mystic? And so that's why when I saw your your website, Modern Day Mystic, I was like, that's a question that I commonly ask people who have had their awakening experience and now have dedicated their lives to, bettering humanity. And I know that your take on modern has to do with technology, but maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth. So if I were to ask you that question, what is the role of the modern mystic in creating the new age? What would you say to that?
So for years, I developed my own websites, and I was fragmented. I had no banner to kind of bring everything together. So in 2011, I hired a guide to put a website up. And I said, I need a theme. I need something. And lo and behold, the universe provides it. He's like, moderndaymystic.com, .org, and .net are all open. Let's get them. And then I sat back for a little bit. I was like, okay, so everything I'm doing really represents past, present, and future, all done in the now. So the modern part was perfect. And then the mystic part came in. And the mystic part to me was there's an air of mysticism. What you're doing really can't be explained through science. It can only be experienced. It's mystic. It's mystical. It's something that you just feel within your body, you feel in your aura, you feel in the energy around you. And when people come to the website and they start, looking at some of the free downloaded material or the products that we sell, they are in my world, and that world is very mystical.
And do you think that as healers and spiritual teachers or mentors, that we have something unique that is needed right now? Because you did quote around science, and as I see around us now, more people are I think almost looking at science like a religion. And and I think that
Scientology.
we desperately need people, I think, who can bring in the mystical, who can bring in the experiential, who can teach people that there's other knowledge, there's other ways of acquiring wisdom than can just be captured by, the scientific method or something. That's important, but for me, that's like half of it. There's this whole other half, whether you want to call that the divine feminine or the intuitive, the emotional, the abstract. There's a piece of knowing that if we don't have that, then the other side will run rampant, whether that's as we see science becoming more pragmatic or dogmatic and almost religious in some regard.
So I was born and raised Catholic, and I went to church every week, and I always questioned, why am I here? What am I doing? It never made any sense. And I have great respect for religions and people that are religious. But for me, after my wake up experience, what I found was my own truth. And that whole world just fell by the wayside. And what I know, what I believe is coming. So let me rephrase that. There's a lot of people, even religious, talks about, um, uh, something happening in the future, some great reset, something like that. There's all kinds of names out there for it. But for me, there's a reset coming, and it's on the way. There's no doubt about it. When it's coming, what it is, I have no idea. Nobody knows what it is. And if they start preaching to you what it is, walk away or take the parts that resonate and leave the rest. There are, and this is what I know, there are advanced teams of people being put in place for the last 40 years. I'm a prime example of it. I don't preach anything. Okay. I'm a doer. I create products and services that alter people's lives for the better on many different levels with many different options. And 20 years ago, thinking about where I am to now, yeah, right. Even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there's a reset coming. What it is, what it looks like, I have no idea. But I'm just doing my part. I'm following my heart. I'm completely open and complete devotion to my craft. And I have spent years gaining mastery on every level in it, and I'm continuing to learn. But when it comes to what other spiritual teachers are teaching, I have no idea. I'm not a teacher. I just relay information that I get from my sources. And if people want to listen, awesome. Most people that do listen find themselves in a much, much better spot very quickly.
You have an interesting way of a type of breath work that I have not seen, where you um, breathe in through the mouth. No,
Yeah.
breathe
Breathe
in
in through
through.
the mouth, exhale through the nose.
Can you explain the thinking behind that?
There is no thinking behind it. It's perfectly natural. What you're doing is you're shattering the bullshit out there. You're shattering the paradigm. There is so much conditioning that people go through. That's why 99.9 whatever percent of the planet is asleep. And the people that are awake are now being conditioned by so-called meditate whatevers. Everything I do goes against the grain of what makes sense. So breathing through your mouth and exhaling through your nose in some of the violet flame decrees that I've done, some of the body geometries that I've done is much, much more potent than just breathing through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. It doesn't make sense, but it works. Okay. And I so many, many years ago, I used to advertise a little bit on the internet, banner ads, whatever. And they're very expensive to do. I said, but I wasn't getting my ROI back, your return on investment. So if you spend X amount, you should be getting blah, blah, blah. I wasn't getting anything. So I made a decision to invest in customer excellence and product R&D. Okay. I don't have an answering service. When somebody calls the business line, who do you think picks up? I do, because I want to be in touch with my customers. So everything conventional about business, about teaching, about product delivery, what they do, I go against the grain. I push the envelope. I break people's thinking out of their mold to allow them for 1 second to step outside their comfort zone. Think about it. Your consciousness is in a box, okay? And that box is where you live your life. And when you get stressed out, you get anxiety, what do? You build the walls a little thicker and the ceiling a little higher. But if you have the foresight and the capacity to step outside your comfort zone for 1 second, the entire weight of the universe will come to bear and pick you up and give you everything you need to succeed in whatever your endeavor is. So by going against the grain, it's just shaking stuff up.
Yeah, I thought it was I mean, I do all sorts of breath work and meditation, and I was like, huh, I don't think I've ever done that move, but it was I thought brought a lot of clarity. I thought that it felt different for sure. So I went back to like some of the very early, the most early writings on your website, and you have a part that says that the quantum realm has been seriously misconstrued. Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, and I kind of did before. So light chasers, people that offer lip service, right? So when people wake up, it can take a lifetime, it can take many years, it could be very quick, or it can be instantaneous. I woke up instantaneous. Okay, I had no teachers except the Ascended Master Saint Germain, who was really by my side and still is today, but more so in the early years. And the first group of people I came across back then was the new age love and light crowd. And they're beautiful people and they do good things. but all they offer is lip service. And I said to the universe at that point, if I'm going to take this path, I'm going to carve it through solid rock, come hell or high water. And that's exactly what I did. And even today, I move through the world with blinders on. Everything I have learned, bled, bred, pushed out into the world has been through my own experience. You have to unlearn everything you have ever learned for the real learning to begin. And only in that experience do you truly understand. So, with the quantum realm, and once upon a time when I wanted to build software, what I do, I started reading everything quantum this, quantum that. And I found myself being conditioned by science to think a certain way, right? Everything has to be explained through mathematical formulas. But if you're intuitive and could just believe for a second that everything is energy, that energy is all interconnected, and that plane is the quantum realm, then everything just comes rushing forward and it simplifies the playing field to allow you to achieve greatness in this field of what your endeavors are.
So when you say that the love and lighters are just providing lip service, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, everyone that I talk to, and I've talked to a lot of people back then, they were good people, beautiful, but all they do is they regurgitate what everybody else is doing. So everything has been packaged, repackaged, ancient scripts, all kinds of information. There was never anything new and exciting out there. Okay. It was all the same stuff with some quantum this, a new spin on it. So all they were doing was offering lip service. No one was creating action, which then caused a reaction. And the reaction is that positive karma, right? So I took it upon myself to just blaze ahead in a trail and just be hyper focused on my path.
So I have a couple more questions, I think. You also talk about structured water, which I thought was interesting. What are the components of structured water?
Energy, energy. So we've done a lot of experiments, and you can look at them on my YouTube channel, where you just take ordinary tap water, and water contains the memories of everywhere it's ever been. Okay. And early on with Aquaware, we very quickly learned that we weren't achieving, say, above a 70% ratio of people that were programming water. And we were wondering, why is that happening? And then we figured it out. Water contains the memories of everywhere it's ever been. So we created use water preparation, which would remove the memories and the energy from the water before you projected the intent into it. And then we achieved maybe 80, 85%. And then we figured out that the subconscious mind was playing a role in the delivery mechanism. So we created water preparation, which creates a thin veil at the very top. When you drink it, it goes right to the subconscious mind and opens it up for acceptance of the intention that follows. So, structured water, there's a lot of cool machines on the market that actually do structured water through funneling, all kinds of different stuff. Structured water is programmed water with intention. Okay. And when you have the ability to do that, you can see amazing changes.
Yeah, in Japan, they have. I watched this documentary first where they talked about the how detrimental it is to take the water and like push it through these pipes, and it doesn't have any of the
Sure.
natural like flow and movement. And in Japan, they have where the rivers would naturally go down before everything. Now everything's kind of concrete. They did actually try and build in more movement to the water. So they built like steps and things for it to flow through and try to sort of recreate its natural movement to give some of that life force energy back to the water, which I kind of thought was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. There's people out there doing amazing stuff with water. A lot of really cool tools on the market. Good stuff.
I don't want to get too weird, but I think you might have mentioned the Palladians earlier, but because I've interviewed people all over the spectrum. And so this lady, she wrote a book channeling the Palladians, which aliens, right? And they talk a lot about water. They talk about how even water is actually how telepathy works. The water in me is talking to the water in you. And once you can learn to connect to water in that way, then all of a sudden you can bring forth all of these telepathic abilities, which I thought was really cool. It seems to be an important component, regardless of kind of which perspective you're coming from.
Water, again, is the most programmable material on the planet. You could do amazing stuff with it. I just use the power of technology to amplify something that people have been doing for a long time. So I get questions all the time. Why can't I program my water with love? You can. How long can you hold your attention? Oh,
Do you have any low tech for yourself personally? Like, do you meditate? Do you have other practices that you use as part of your spiritual practice?
I do, I, I do meditate infrequently. I find for myself that I'm best, on the edge of the consciousness grid at 200 miles an hour with my hair on fire. That's where I operate at the best. And the most important thing that I've learned in all of these travels is just to be open. Just be open. Just be open. Love yourself. Most important rule. Love yourself and be open. And it opens up a world that you can't fathom.
Well, I think that is a good place to pause. I like to give my guests just a moment to share how people can get in touch with you and social media or websites, those kind of things.
The nexus is moderndaymystic.com. You can get a hold of me through the website. You can call the 800 number. The moderndaymystic.com is the best way to get a hold of me.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for coming on the Chaos and Light podcast.
Thank you. Awesome.
Well, we will be right back after this ridiculously short break. Are you enjoying this podcast and want to help this lady out? Well, share it with friends, or even better, leave a review on iTunes. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show. Well, that's it for today's episode. If you haven't checked out chaosandlight.com, please do. We'll be back next week with a solo episode. It's about time we got back to some divine spectacle. Well, take care and seek the mystery.